I'm still praying that this Anthony Joshua-Luis Ortiz fight can be salvaged. Jay Jimenez, Ortiz's manager, has now come out in an interview and admitted that he messed up and that Ortiz's promoter messed up in the negotiations, trying to play hardball. At the end of the day, Ortiz's team must know that Eddie Hearn is negotiating with several other fighters. Why? Because he's trying to get this deal wrapped up ASAP. Eddie Hearn is under pressure to get a replacement opponent for AJ, so that the opponent has enough time to train. And it's obviously going to be a fairly short camp, but some guys are already in training. And so AJ can know who he's fighting and then get the appropriate sparring in for the final few weeks of camp. And on top of that, so they can start marketing it. The Zone are trying to establish themselves in the United States. They don't want to leave it up until 3 or 4 weeks before the fight to start marketing it, because it was supposed to be Jarrell Miller. Now it's going to be a different guy on the poster. So Ortiz's team know that Hearn wants to get a deal wrapped up quick. He can't spend several weeks negotiating. Which is why Jay Jimenez, again, he's now come out and said that it is them who messed up in the negotiations. And you know, what does this show? It shows once again that the AJ detractors, mostly Deontay Wilder fanboys, are absolutely clueless about the reality of heavyweight boxing today. They're completely deluded about what's really going on. They've been believing this utter crap that has been coming out of the mouths of people like Shelley Finkel, Deontay Wilder himself, etc. That AJ's this coward. AJ will never fight Ortiz. AJ will never fight Wilder. Well, here you have AJ trying to secure the Ortiz fight. It just totally shatters this absurd myth that the Wilder fanboys have constructed for themselves. That AJ will be scared of this man. AJ's fought better guys than Ortiz. Why would he be scared of Ortiz? Absolutely absurd. And this situation shows the difference between the perception and the reality. The reality is AJ's desperate for the Ortiz fight. It's the first name that he chose. Eddie Hearn wants the Ortiz fight. Most of the British public want the Ortiz fight. I certainly want the Ortiz fight. That's the reality. Not this bizarre and insane dream world that so many of these Wilder fanboys live in, where AJ is just this coward and he doesn't want to fight nobody good. I mean, if you looked at his resume after 22 fights, what brand of crack are you smoking? So, look, I hope that this interview here with Jay Jimenez helps to turn the tide and that it's still a salvageable fight, Joshua versus Ortiz, because I think it makes sense on so many levels. It's a fighter who the people are going to know. It's a fighter which we can compare AJ's performance against Ortiz to Wilder's performance against Ortiz, etc., etc. Now, there's obviously still some ambiguity about why Ortiz's team have been behaving like this. According to Jimenez, Ortiz wants to fight and doesn't even care that much about the money. But his promoter, which is Dade Promotions, were really pushing for more money. This is what Jimenez is saying, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean that's the full story, because obviously a lot of people, pretty much everybody now, is speculating about whether Ortiz is a clean athlete at this point, because he has failed a number of tests in the past. And if he's not clean right now, is it a situation where he's concerned about not having enough time to flush whatever substance may or may not be in his system? That's still a possibility. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just saying, given the man's history, it could be a possibility. There's also the possibility I mentioned before that Al Heyman simply doesn't want Luis Ortiz to fight Anthony Joshua. He instead wants to save him for Deontay Wilder, because according to Eddie Hearn, and look, Hearn is just hearing rumors. So just because Hearn has said it, it doesn't mean it's going to be true. But Hearn has heard or has been told, I think he said one of Ortiz's team members told him that they've been promised the Wilder fight, and that Wilder's next 2 fights, if he gets past Brazil, are going to be Ortiz and Kaunaki. That makes sense to me, to be honest. And if that is the case, if that happens, it just shows, once again, that the Wilder fanboys are living in a dream world, thinking that Anthony Joshua is avoiding Wilder, when it's, at this point, it's exactly the opposite. It's Wilder who has no intention at all of taking that undisputed fight anytime soon, which is deeply disappointing. And it shows, really, as far as I'm concerned, that Wilder is not in control of his career, because I think Wilder does want to fight AJ. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he does want to fight him, but he's been steered by Heyman and Finkel, etc. And I think they've taken the decision out of his hands. Maybe even Steven Espinoza at Showtime has a lot of sway over what Deontay Wilder's going to do. So, yeah, it's disappointing to me. I'd like to see Wilder in the undisputed fight, obviously, but I don't think he has that much control over his career, you know? So he just does what he's told. This is my perception of it. I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, and if he does have control over his career, then it's Wilder who doesn't want to fight. It's Wilder who's swerving it. It's Wilder who's, for whatever reason, reluctant to step in the ring with AJ. But I personally think he wants to. He has no intention of going against his team right now. That's clear. And if he has no intention of going against his team, then he has no intention of fighting AJ anytime soon. He's going along with what his team want him to do. And that might be to fight Ortiz, Kaunaki after fighting Dominic Brazil, if he gets past Brazil. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here. I've seen some people say, well, you see, serves Ortiz right. I hope he don't get the fight now. No. I hope he does get the fight. Yes, there are shenanigans by Team Ortiz, and they're trying to play on this whole AJ lowballing hype train, which Deontay Wilder created, which is absurd. Deontay Wilder, I have to say this again, very good fighter, dangerous fighter, but at the negotiating table, this is an unsophisticated man. This is a hillbilly. That's what he is. This is not a guy who is business savvy, Deontay Wilder. The man's coming out calling lowball offers, getting the biggest offers of his entire career, and he's calling them lowball offers. Ortiz's people got caught up in the hype, admitting that they messed up. In fact, where is the exact quote here? He says, I think I jumped the gun when I called it a lowball offer. Of course you jumped the gun. You got caught up in this silly Wilder dream world, which Tyson Fury hasn't really been as vocal about, to be fair. I think it's more Frank Warren. Frank Warren, Deontay Wilder, Wilder's team, they've all been talking about, AJ lowballing me, Dylan White as well. When these guys are being offered career high money and they're saying they've been lowballed, I mean, you really have to wonder what the hell is going on in this world. You really have to wonder what's going on, because it's one thing to say a guy lowballed you if you've got another fight lined up for more money. But when your next fight is going to pay you drastically less than AJ offered you, how on earth could you be running around talking about you got lowballed? It really is insane. But that's heavyweight boxing today. And, indeed, Ortiz's trainer as well here, not just his manager now, but even his trainer is frustrated and upset by the way the promoter has handled the situation, Ortiz's promoter. Yeah? He's talking about it. But one thing I do have to take issue with, right? One thing I do have to take issue with what Ortiz's trainer says is he's saying that he's frustrated that Ortiz's promoter didn't, do the deal and sort the situation out, and they maybe have played the wrong hand. But he then goes on to say, if Eddie Hearn is being serious about this offer, then we'll take it. Because he says here, he personally believes that we would have seen an upside down contract just to stall and negotiate and renegotiate. Most fighters won't take a fight until they have a signed contract. There's a lot of things you can do with a contract to not make a fight happen. That is an absurd thing to suggest, that Eddie Hearn somehow doesn't want this fight. Eddie Hearn is under pressure. Eddie Hearn has got several negotiations going on with different fighters. Back and forth emails, phone calls, drafting up terms, drafting up contracts. Like, this is what he's doing right now, as well as running the rest of his business, dealing with loads of other different fighters. And he's got this headache, the pressure of this headache of trying to get this fight sorted. You think he's going to pull a publicity stunt when he's under all this pressure, when he's got all this stuff going on, and he's just got enough time to mess around and send fake offers back and forth to Luis Ortiz? What brand of crack is this guy smoking, suggesting that Eddie Hearn's not serious about the fight? Are you crazy? Do you know how busy this man is? You know how many shows he puts on? How many fighters he has in his stable? And Eddie Hearn's somebody who can reel off the shows and the dates and the opponents from the top of his head. This is a guy who barely sleeps. On the phone constantly all day, sorting out contracts and fights and negotiate all the time. And particularly with this AJ USA debut on DAZN, massive pressure for him to sort that out ASAP. And this guy is entertaining the possibility that it's all just some elaborate ploy by Eddie Hearn and doesn't really want the Ortiz fight. Stop smoking that crack. You wouldn't have got an offer from Hearn at all if you didn't want the fight. Jeez. Unbelievable. But he says, I'm upset that they didn't consult me more and that they didn't want to take my opinion to heart. I'm around Luis every day. If we're saying we're ready, take the money and the fight, you accept the offer and make Eddie show you a contract saying it's real. So again, Ortiz's trainer is frustrated with Ortiz's promoter. They've messed it up. They have messed it up. Maybe they really bought into this nonsense that Anthony Joshua would be afraid of Ortiz. Maybe they bought into that nonsense. And when they realized actually it's real, then it kind of caught them off guard. And they were scrambling around, and the promoter was like, okay, let's try and get more money. There seems to be a lot of scrambling around in that camp right now for whatever reason, but they've clearly messed up. There's finger pointing between Ortiz's trainer, the manager, the pointing fingers at the promoter. It will be a travesty. Let's be real. It'll be a travesty if Luis Ortiz misses out on this fight because of the actions of his promoter. If that's the real reason for their team behaving the way they've been behaving, and that it's got nothing to do with PEDs or nothing to do with Al Heyman, if it just comes down to his promoter messing up, that's a travesty. I mean, even if it comes down to Al Heyman, it's a travesty. Blocking the fight. God knows how old Luis Ortiz really is, but he certainly doesn't have that long left at top level in this world of professional boxing. So to be offered $5 million or more, because once AJ's opponent is announced, as long as it's not Ortiz, Eddie Hearn is going to reveal what the offers were to Ortiz. He's threatened to, quote unquote, expose them. So let's say it's at the moment $5 million. That is life-changing money for Luis Ortiz. for a poor kid who grew up in Cuba, came to the United States in search of the American dream. That's the American dream right there. That $5 million check. And if he was able to beat AJ, that $5 million check gets multiplied several fold for the rematch. How could you throw an opportunity like this away? I don't know what the contractual situation is between Ortiz and Dade Promotions or Ortiz and Heyman, but if those guys have prevented him from getting this life-changing payday, he needs to walk away. If it's contractually feasible, he needs to fire those guys because they haven't been working in his best interests. You know, I've been listening to a couple Beats videos recently where he's talking about, in fact, no, it wasn't even Beats. It was, well, I've heard Beats talk about it. I've also heard Eddie Hearn talk about it in some interviews where, you know, does the advisor or the promoter work for the best interest of the fighter, or are they doing what's best for their promotional company and their TV network? Because in the case of Al Heyman at the moment, and look, I've praised Al Heyman for many years, especially in the early days of PBC when he was putting fights on multiple different networks, free to air, you know, not behind a paywall. I was praising Heyman. But no promoter or quote unquote advisor is below praise, and no promoter or advisor is above criticism. So when it comes to Heyman, right now you see what he's doing with his welterweights. He's keeping him away from Terence Crawford. But who does that benefit? Does that really benefit his welterweights, or does that benefit his organization? Trying to freeze out potentially the best welterweight in the world. Same thing at heavyweight. If he's trying to keep Luis Ortiz as an opponent for Wilder, who does that benefit? Does that benefit Ortiz more, or does that benefit Fox, Showtime, whatever network's going to put it on? And Wilder, I think it benefits them more. At this point in time, as an outsider looking in, the thing that benefits Ortiz the most is allowing him to fight Anthony Joshua. That's life-changing money for him. He may never be offered that kind of money ever again. We have to wait and see. They are talking about, the rumor is that Wilder may fight Ortiz on pay-per-view. But we'll see what that can do. You know, I would be very surprised if Luis Ortiz was able to get anywhere near as much money from a Wilder pay-per-view as Tyson Fury got. I'd be amazed. I don't think he'd get anywhere near that much money. I could be wrong, but that's my prediction. I don't see him getting anywhere near as much as Tyson Fury got. And I think Tyson Fury got, what was it, maybe like, how many $1 million did he get? I think he might have got like $7 or $8 million or something, Tyson Fury, for the Deontay Wilder fight. I'd be amazed if Luis Ortiz got anywhere near that for a Wilder pay-per-view. And who's to say, you know, that fight will even be pay-per-view? I think a lot of it is dependent on Wilder's viewing figures for the Dominic Breazeale fight. If that does well, then maybe they'll put the Ortiz fight on pay-per-view afterwards. But if it doesn't do particularly well, you know the rest. Anyway, bottom line is, I hope that this fight can be salvaged. Ortiz versus Joshua. And we can get these two guys in the ring. Get a fight which the majority of the public are happy with. And just on a final note, Luis Ortiz's trainer says that Ortiz is in shape. So any notion that Ortiz, you know, was caught off guard by this and he's not in shape, and, you know, the time that he has to prepare isn't enough. Well, look at what his trainer says here. He says, so I'm reading Luis was on holiday, that Jay initially told Eddie that Luis wasn't ready, which I don't know. I guess I don't know why he would. Unless a vacation for Luis means spending time in a different part of the gym, I don't know where anyone got that information from. His kids are in school where the hell is he going to go by himself? The only time he took off is when I had to force him to take a staycation around Easter when his kids had a break from school. Even then, he was still at the track every morning like he always is. He's still jumping rope every day. He's always training and he's always ready for a fight. For Joshua, sure, we'd love an 8 to 12 week camp, but we could get ready in 5 if the fight was signed today. So again, any nonsense coming out of these idiotic Wilder fanboys and these detractors and naysayers, you can discard that now because we've got Luis Ortiz, his own trainer, saying that he's been training. He's been staying in shape. So what Wilder said actually was true. Yeah, because Wilder says Ortiz is always in the gym. I've mentioned this in a couple previous videos. Wilder was telling the truth. He was accurate when he said that. Ortiz is always in the gym because now we've got confirmation from Ortiz's trainer. So he's ready. Yeah, he's got still 5 weeks left. And I'm sure Ortiz will be training harder now that the opportunity to face Joshua has come up. So he may be in full training camp thinking, okay, I might get the Joshua fight. Let's go. So if this fight ends up happening, Ortiz might have still had a 6-week camp or 6.5-week camp. Eddie Hearn said that when he initially approached Team Ortiz with a view to making Joshua Ortiz, there was just under 7 weeks between that time and June 1st. So from then, I would imagine Ortiz would have been ramping up the training, knowing that there's a possibility of fighting AJ. So if the fight happens, Ortiz is going to be in shape, no problem, in terms of the condition that he's in. He's going to be in shape. May the best man win. You know? In fact, it's a bit more tricky for AJ, I would say, because of the fact that he hasn't been preparing himself for a southpaw. You see, when you're a southpaw, 95% of the fighters you face are going to be orthodox. So you don't have to get special sparring in for facing an orthodox, 6'6" heavyweight, because so many of your opponents are orthodox 6'6" heavyweights. So many of your sparring partners are those dimensions and orthodox. But when you're AJ, you're not used to fighting southpaws. There's only one southpaw AJ's fought as a pro that I can remember, which is Charles Martin. So it's a bigger adjustment for AJ to make. Yeah, Ortiz is in the gym. He's been in the gym, according to his own trainer. AJ has to make technical adjustments. He has to get used to sparring southpaws. And of course, his trainer, Robert McCracken, is a little concerned about that, as he might be. He's supposed to be. So he's got a bigger adjustment to make. But either way, he wants to take the challenge. So hopefully the fight can get done. And may the best man win. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Ortiz's team now backtracking and almost begging for the fight. Desperate. I hope they get it. Let me know how you feel in the comments. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.